Good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. The copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the table outside as well as on our website. There is also an automatic external defibrillator in the back, on the back wall of the legislative chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle? Here. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Here. Commissioner Friend?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Morgan? Here. Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, June 14, 2022. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, June 28, 2022, as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next are resolutions D, E, and F. There is no need for, citizen comments. Anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda?
I had hoped to do this a couple minutes earlier here during your proclamations, but I'm here today not because I really want to. I really don't like to do this, but I would like to ask you maybe come back with an amendment to your resolution on Juneteenth. I will give you a copy of something, but I'll make further remarks during citizen comments later.
Mr. Stork, you state your name for the record.
Resolutions as worded get into the theory of...
Larry, please state your name.
Excuse me, Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska, 68132. I'd like you to rephrase your proclamation. Not that I'm totally against it, but there are certain words in there that smack of the critical race theory tactic, which is Marxist, and I as a citizen have to complain about it. We will not have 2 Independence Days. The theory of critical race theory and Marxist theory is to split us, to divide us, and that's exactly what is happening. There is not 2 Independence Days, and we are not still guilty of systemic racism. I've crossed out what I think you should revise and reproclamate. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. Resolutions D, E, and F. There is no need for executive session, so this could be the approval of resolutions and adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
We will move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle?
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Here.
Commissioner Friend?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia? Here. Commissioner Morgan?
Present.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, June 14, 2022. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Friend. Please vote.
Commissioner Rogers. Motion passes 7-0.
Next is our consent agenda, items A through K. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Friend. Are questions or comments on consent? Commissioner Boyle?
Hey, it looks like items 1 and 3 are the same thing.
One is, no, they're two different, but on there is, on J3, I was notified that the actual agreement isn't on the website, listed on the website yet,
Okay.
but it will be after today's board meeting. But they look like they're two different. It looks like one is HIV, CTR prevention, and then the other one is a renewal.
I guess when you look at the agenda, item 1 says amendment from Nebraska Department of,
Oh, one.
yeah,
I thought
1
I'm
and
looking
3
one
look
and
exactly the same.
Is anybody here or on from the health department? Any staff back there, can you help us out here? If that's not supposed to be there, or?
We hang out. We always ask that somebody from the department be on the, even for a consent agenda item. So, but it looks like
Dan Esch, County Clerk, I'm probably
Looks like
not,
it might be different.
not helping, but the attachment for
Yeah.
J3 is a little longer than the attachment for J1. But
They're
I
different
couldn't-
things.
yeah.
They're different.
They are
yeah. If you
different.
look at the language, one
Of
of
the-
them is
Yeah,
lifespan health services, and one's STI. So, I believe they are different.
yeah, they are different.
I guess could we get clarification on that before we approve it?
Do you want to call over to Lindsay? And ask her to hop on, or somebody hop on?
Yeah. If you look at the agenda request forms for J3, it should read amendment from Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public Health STI Prevention Program for a second renewal through December 31, 2022. And then J1 says Amendment 2 from Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public Health Lifespan Health Services Immunization Program. So that is what the two agenda request forms say.
So that tells me that J1 on the agenda should say,
That should say exactly
not,
what I just read.
it shouldn't say STI prevention program, so the agenda is incorrect. It should say amendment 2 from, it's actually regarding an immunization program, not an STI prevention program.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so J1 needs to be revised to state what the agenda, what our agenda item request says. It sounds like we're not approving the agenda is incorrect. Because
It looks like it was transcribed wrong.
incorrectly, so if we, that needs
Okay,
to-
so just note that J1 should read Amendment 2 from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public Health Lifespan Health Services Immunization Program. And then J3,
And then, well, just to go back, sorry to interrupt, on J1, also the amount requested, it says it's grant funded, but doesn't have a dollar amount on the agenda item request form.
and that is,
It looks like, yeah, it looks like she just transcribed it the same for both, but you're right, it doesn't have the
Yeah, it's-
amount. I'm looking at the resolution, I don't see an amount on there either.
Right. So it sounds like J1 should be basically removed and replaced with this new one, but again, there's no dollar amount stated in the amount.
I'm wondering if there is, we should probably hold off then on number
On number
1.
1, yes, I agree.
And if we can get to Lindsay before the end of the board meeting, we'll come back to it. But for now, let's approve the consent A through K minus J1. Did the motion and seconder agree with that? Okay. All right, any other questions or comments on the consent? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next are our recognition and proclamations. The first is a recognition of the following county employee who is retiring, Marilyn Johnson, who's worked for the Douglas County Health Department for 26 years. I do not believe Marilyn is here, but we do wish her well and thank her for her service to Douglas County. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next is a resolution recognizing and celebrating June 19th as Juneteenth, also called Emancipation Day, commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll read the resolution, then move for approval. It says, whereas Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day, is a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States, celebrated annually on each June 19th. And whereas the name Juneteenth references the date of the holiday combining the words June and 19th. And whereas the significance of this date refers to June 19th, 1865, the date of which the last African-American slaves who were residing in Texas were notified that slavery had been abolished per the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, edict 2 years earlier by the former President Abraham Lincoln, and who had been, by that date, had been succeeded by President Andrew Johnson. And whereas Juneteenth first became an annual celebration in Texas and later throughout the United States, with the earliest observations including prayer meetings and singings of spirituals, and growing to include speeches, educational events, family gatherings, and picnics, parades, and festivals, music, food, and dancing. And whereas it is important to recognize that this date definitely acknowledges a dark chapter in American history. And whereas on June 16th, 2021, the U.S. Congress passed legislation to formally recognize each June 19th as a federal holiday, officially renaming the day Juneteenth National Independence Day. And whereas in remembrance, Juneteenth is an opportunity for African Americans of all races to join together to acknowledge the lasting impact of slavery and racial injustice in the United States, and to recommit ourselves to our next generation to the goal of dismantling systemic racism and creating an equitable society. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board does hereby declares and observes June 19th, Juneteenth National Independence Day, a county holiday, and encourages all residents to take cognizance of this federal holiday and participate in its observance. And I move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. I enthusiastically second this resolution celebrating the extension of freedom and the abolishment of slavery in order to form a more perfect union as envisioned by the martyred President Abraham Lincoln, who had actually signed the proclamation in 1862, effective January 1st, 1863, and subsequently engineered the passage of the 13th Amendment, permanently abolishing slavery as a constitutional matter in early 1865, for which he was murdered. His assassin killed him because he objected to the fact that this man had done everything that he could to form a more perfect union and free the slaves. This is a great opportunity for us to celebrate freedom and to celebrate the more perfect union that was accomplished by this move, and to welcome the celebration nationwide of this as a national holiday. And I'm glad to say, I think we passed a resolution to make it a county holiday as well. So this is a great day Well, it was a couple days ago. And I look forward to celebrating it far into the future. It's a great opportunity for all of us to celebrate what a great country we live in. And I want to thank Commissioner Rogers for bringing this.
With that, any other questions or comments on the resolution?
Larry Stewart, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I was a little confused when you jumped to the mention of the resolution, so I'm sorry I jumped up at early. So I'd like to revise and extend briefly. There are some other evidences in literature and history that this was not an Independence Day, not intended to be, and it should not be called that. There is only one Independence Day in this country, and that is July 4th. We all recognize and looked forward to the end of slavery. But the Founding Fathers tried to end that as best they could. It took a while to get it accomplished, and it took a war, but it wasn't just over slavery. But I'd like to just mention a few articles that you can all go to revise your history, knowledge of your history. One is an email that I think I sent to you. I'll give this one to you. It's called talks about the New Islam, the Juneteenth, the cultural Marxism, and Black Lives Matters. Another article in the New American Magazine called Juneteenth Was Not the End of Slavery. You need to read their words, not mine. And another one called the Black Lives That Don't Matter, to point out that there were a lot of black lives that were murdered by tyrants throughout history. But we don't talk about that. We just want to say that this white, privileged individual speaking to you now is one of those that feels that black lives don't matter. I do not personally feel that way. I have a grandson that is half race. I may be a little black blood myself, maybe a little Indian blood. We're all Americans. There aren't two Americans, and nobody should say so. Thank you. Please revise your resolution before you vote.
Thank you.
Those on Zoom, thank you. With that, any other questions or comments on the resolution? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
And if we could, I'd like to go back to J1. Dr. Hughes has come in, and not to put you on the spot, Dr. Hughes, but there were some questions in regards to J1 and J3 being the same agenda items, but as we were looking at it, we're noting that there is some difference to them. But there is a dollar amount attached to item 1, which I don't think there's supposed to be. It's just reporting requirements according to the attachments that we received in our backup information. So we just wanted to clarify that, again, item 1 was supposed to be for lifespan and immunization, and no dollar amount is attached to it, but it's supposed to be for reporting purposes.
Yep, so Lindsay Hughes, Director of Douglas County Health Department, that appears to be the case. So it looks like it was transcribed wrong on the agenda in terms of putting the STI prevention program grant in there twice, and it should have been the immunization one. And then this is just an update to reporting requirements, so there is no amendment or change to the actual budgeted amount. So your interpretation of that appears to be correct.
All right, with that then, is there a motion to approve J1?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you for that clarification. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next is citizen comments. Anyone in the chamber or on Zoom wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda?
Larry Store, 5015
Could those
Lafayette.
on Zoom please mute themselves? Thank you.
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. We're approaching July 4th. We need a new understanding of traditional American history, Constitution, and celebration of July 4th. There are two items I want to mention today, briefly. I may have shown this magazine, but it is referenced in the email. I don't subscribe to this magazine. When I was a little boy, it was part of an ultra-right organization that was fighting the Joe McCarthy era. Little town in Glenwood, Iowa, there was a little billboard sign that said Home of the John Birch Society. However, when I read this magazine that was given to me by a person that's running for office, it has a lot of truth into it, and I think people need to start discussing these things. And also, the Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Because obviously, right now, our governments, including the state and local governments, are out of control. We control those governments, we the people, but they're not listening to we the people. Instead, they are turning you and other people across this country against we the people. Just because I wear this hat doesn't make me a terrorist. I was not there on the Capitol steps. That was not the true supporters of Donald Trump. But the media and the Congress right today is having another one of these. Call us all terrorists. We're the enemy, not them. Truth be known, some of their own brown shirts were embedded in that crowd that went up those steps. But they don't tell you the truth. That's why we need an Article 5 convention as a last result for the people themselves to petition their government, not by you or by the state legislatures, because we can't even trust them anymore. And the founding documents, declaration still holds true. You can't separate it. When your government is not such and such and such and such, it is your right, your duty to change, alter, or replace that government. Not with a revolution, but a new government. And by amending the existing document. Not rewording it, not rewriting it, but amending it. So we need amendments suggested by people like myself, uncontrolled by you or the state legislator, to propose and meet with people in a convention across state lines, what they used to call interstate conventions, which led to the Articles of Confederation and the new Constitution, because the Articles were not sufficient to win a war. That's the fact of history. But the people that want to rewrite the history, the progressives, want to tell us differently. And it's time for you guys to stop listening to them. They are these so-called national associations. They're 501c3s. That's how they make their money. I'm not one of them. I'm just the person that's included in We the People. But somebody else wants to usurp my power, and they are usurping the power of the president. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board about an item not on the agenda?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. Good morning. I just want to also comment on things that are on my mind. Well, right now is that I just want to make clear what I understand what's going on in the country is that we have former President Trump being accused of seditious activity, planning seditious activity, and we're not calling his supporters terrorists. We're saying that Donald Trump orchestrated an act against the United States. I wanted to come before you today because I've been talking to a lot of Douglas County residents, and one thing that they talk about is property taxes. And this board has direct influence on property taxes in Douglas County. One thing that we have to discuss, to be clear, is that what I call unfunded liabilities, costs that are approved by local bodies like the county commission, increases property taxes because those unfunded liabilities are financed by the property taxes. I want to be here because this is a partisan board. We have Republicans on the board and we have Democrats on the board. And I know, coming here for the last few years, is that this commission, this county commission, this board raised property taxes when you voted on approving the Juvenile Justice Center, the courthouse annex. It went up. And Madam Chair, you voted on that knowing full well that it was going to raise the property taxes and it was not going to get a vote of the people here in Douglas County, where they had the opportunity to reject the increase in their property taxes, because that would be the effect of funding the Juvenile Justice Center. And people need to know that. The property taxes are a wedge issue that is kicked down the road. You keep kicking, everybody in Nebraska keeps kicking this can down the road on property taxes. If, you know, we understand voters want good schools, they want to have good streets, roads, and so these non-funded liabilities are approved on a consistent basis, and it raises their own property taxes. But I bet you if you had given the voters here in Douglas County the chance to approve or disapprove the complex center here for the juvenile detention, it would have been voted down, because there wasn't enough discussion or understanding by the professionals and by this board to make a good determination. And you heard it here all the time, that this was not a good way to develop juvenile reform. I think that was the error here of not having a full discussion, and that discussion could have been set to the voters to decide if they wanted to pay more property taxes for this justice center. Now, I repeat myself that I understand there's a lot of things that increases property taxes on bond issuance.
1 minute.
For the bonds, okay? I understand that. But here today, I think that this needs to be clear to you guys and to the voters that every time you pass bonds, it increases their own property taxes. I know that the county has the responsibility of juvenile justice, but like developing it and getting people on board, you guys did a lousy job. And the Republicans on the board should have voted it down, or at least paused it, and that hasn't happened. I'm sure this board now, I mean the people that you represent have buyer's remorse by now. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the board about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to a presentation by the Douglas County Fair for our 2022 Douglas County Fair, provided by Matt Gunderson. Good morning.
Where'd that slide thing go?
It disappeared, but it's going to slide too. It's normally down there. I don't know where it went.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. Matt Gunderson, 11516 Nicholas Street, Omaha, day job, Senior Vice President for Strategy, Sales, and Marketing at Farmers National Company, and volunteer capacity here today as Chair of the Douglas County Fair Advisory Board. Wanted to always try to keep the Commission up to date on some things. Also, we know that we have several new commissioners on. Welcome to your terms on the Commission, and wanted to give an update for the fair and where it's upcoming here in a couple weeks. For a background for things, the fair has a mission to be able to hold an annual event where urban and rural meet, to be able to showcase agriculture, education, and industries, while also recognizing its longstanding heritage. We do that by bringing together folks to understand where their food, fiber come from, and the industries that produce them. And you can see how we showcase the values around that, since agriculture certainly is a substantial part of the economy of Douglas County. For a little background and history, the Douglas County Fair is the oldest and longest continuous fair in the state of Nebraska. It was held in Waterloo from the late 1800s to the 1980s, made a transition in the 80s to the Exarban grounds. In 2003, with the opening at that time of the Quest Center, it merged through a local agreement with the Knights of Exarban Foundation, and at that time Exarban's River City Roundup became Exarban's River City Rodeo and Stock Show. And at that point, it was removed from the general fund. It is funded then and today with 262 grant dollars with that. In 2016, the fair separated from the Exarban Foundation and did 2 years on its own, and was wavering at that point from a success standpoint. And so we brought forth an effort then and have had an agreement since 2018 with the Friends of Extension Foundation. That organization's mission is to support the UNL Extension in Douglas and Sarpy counties and the great programs that they do as well. So a couple of backgrounds for things. In the first couple of years, 2018 and 19, it was the first multi-campus fair in the nation, utilizing Village Point and the Chance Ridge Event Center for the livestock shows. We did parades down the center promenade, had live music. We utilized the spare space that was at the Village Point Shopping Center. Really great opportunity. Chance Ridge served as another outdoor space for us with activities out there, as well as the livestock shows. Like anything, certainly the fair was affected by the pandemic when that hit in 2020. To continue the long-standing continuous of the fair, worked with Dottie Poor in her role at that time as head of the health department, and set it up to do a livestock-only event in 2020 to be able to continue the tradition on at the Chance Ridge Event Center out there. 2021 brought a transition. So Village Point had some change in staffing during the pandemic, and so it's really hard to try to paint the picture for somebody that's in the state of Indiana with our corporate offices about what was done with it. So we worked with Sycamore Farms and Junk Stock at that event, had a great opportunity there, and also used Chance Ridge to be able to exhibit livestock at it. And we really enjoyed being out at Junk Stock and Sycamore Farms for that event, and was hoping to make that a long-term relationship. Communication challenges hit post-fair of trying to get an answer out of that, and so by the end of the year, it was decided that Sycamore Farms just wants to be able to hold Junk Stock, and we appreciate that, and it's a great event, certainly attracting visitors to the county. And so we went back and studied some past history, right, of where successes have come from. We started visiting with a couple different entities within Douglas County, and ended up at Liberty First Credit Union Arena, Ralston Arena. I commend the city of Ralston, rolled out the red carpet with us, and have worked in an agreement there to be able to hold it there. And it's going to be, the event dates are July 15th to the 17th. Static exhibits are entered on July 14th, and we'll begin setup. The exhibits will be judged on the 15th. That's misprint, and I apologize. It'll be Friday, July 15th is a ribbon cutting and concert that night, and it's going to be at the Granary District, the former Bushwhacker site that's been redeveloped. We'll have live music there. We're really excited for the opportunity to partner with Liberty First Credit Union, the city of Ralston, to be able to hold it. We're looking at expansion. We have got dates looked at in the future with things and some great opportunities. And so Sometimes folks ask, well, how do you hold a county fair at an arena or a convention center? And it works pretty well, to be honest. Outside of the facility, on the west side of the arena, we're going to have a large tent set up. We'll still have the livestock shows. And we'll have a petting zoo on the east side of the arena, along with a barbecue contest that will occur on Saturday. Inside, and I always like to promote, given that the heat cycle that we're in right now, that it is air conditioned, and we'll have vendors on the inside. We'll have a full community stage. We'll have bounce houses, so if Mother Nature flares up, we don't have to worry about anything with the bounce houses outside. Certainly going to have kids activities. Edgerton Explored will be there. Nebraska Agriculture in the Classroom program, the Omaha Children's Museum. UNL Extension is always a great draw with their Master Gardener and other food safety programs. We'll have demonstrations. Of course, have their traditional static exhibits. The Remember Our Fallen display will also be there if members of the community would like to see that. And then if you want to see something interesting on Friday night is a kids pedal tractor pull. And so we'll be pulling in the arena that night at the Ralston Arena. It's a great opportunity. We really try to bring urban and rural together as part of our theme for things. There are also opportunities for county employees as well as members of the community to volunteer. You can go on to DouglasCountyFair.com. You'll see in the Get Involved section highlighted there underneath volunteers. Click on the sign up. It's going to take you to a completely online sign up form, and there's opportunities to participate and volunteer at a variety of events, and it's all outlined there of what the needs are for those events. And so we certainly can't do it without, we're a totally volunteer-run organization, so we certainly appreciate the support of community volunteers to be able to make that happen. For members of the community or the board looking to connect with us, DouglasCountyFair.org is our website where you can pull up the schedule. Admission is completely free, and so that's one of the great things about it is folks can come down and be able to enjoy the fair, especially now in an air-conditioned facility for a majority of the activities and events, and be able to have urban and rural meet and also celebrate, right, what is Douglas County and from a historical perspective, and also the business and industries that support the fair. You can also connect with us and find us opportunities on Facebook and Twitter. So in the interest of everyone's time, I'm happy to take any questions for things with it. The commission will be receiving invitations to that ribbon cutting on that Friday night at the Greenery Green Space. So Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I see no lights, but want to thank you for bringing us up to date on where we were, and where we are, looking forward to the event this year. So thank you very much for all you do for the fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, thank you.
Oh, Commissioner Rogers?
Thanks, Matt. I'm just curious, how long is your agreement with Ralston Arena?
So we're looking at, it's contingent, Commissioner Rogers, on our agreement with Douglas County, which is up for renewal this year. So we've got a pencil hold, if you will, on Ralston Arena. What we're looking to do is post-fair is to come back and visit with staff and the commission about renewal of that 5-year agreement. And then at that point, then once we get the renewal with the county, then we were going to lock into a renewal with Ralston Arena then. Around that effort for things. So they've kind of got us penciled in, but we're also contingent, of course, on the funding.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. With that, we will move to our public hearing, a proposed 1- and 6-year highway plan for fiscal year 2023 through 2028. Action can be taken, or will be taken on June 28th, 2022. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. Dan Kudelek, Douglas County Engineer's Office. My assistant Karen here will try to help me through my visuals, hopefully. As you may well know, we are required annually to submit a 1- and 6-year capital improvements plan that, after adopted, will be filed for public viewing. It is required and has been since the late 60s, actually, to do that. About 3 years ago, they did change the rules a little bit, and the biggest rule was that the plan does not now be mailed down to the Department of Roads. They'd get, 93 counties and 100 and some municipalities and fill up a closet, I'm sure, with these books. So we only now have to certify by resolution that we are complying with the state law, which we have been doing for the last couple of years, and it's simplified things greatly. In front of you right now is the county map that shows our 23 fiscal year projects, which runs from July 1, 22 to June 30th, 2023. As you can see on the map, they're spread out pretty much uniformly throughout all of Douglas County. We are in a very booming development period right now that we haven't seen in years. And the majority of these projects are related to SID type work and private development type work. There's about 20 of them on this map, roughly. And some of them will be done this year, and some of them will be continued into next year. We're a little concerned about the funding. The cost of construction has gone up markedly. 25% is not unusual, and even higher. Some of our projects have been bid, and we've rejected those bids, and we're going to rebid them at some other time. They weren't priority type projects, could be delayed. So we'll have to just kind of see how that plays out in the competitive business of building highways and roads. Some of these particular projects that might be of interest to you and the public are some bridges. Again, we've continued annually replacing a number of our old 100-year-old bridge structures out in western Douglas County. There are 4 of them now shown in yellow in the northwest corner of Douglas County. 2 of them are under construction. The other 2 one will be let here shortly, take bids on. The other one will probably be done in the following year. Then the other yellow dot is up in Ponca Hills, and I'll talk a little bit, and I actually have a video or a picture of that bridge. That should be opening shortly. That was, for your memory or recollection, I should say, we had a structure that collapsed about a year ago up on 36th and Ponca Road unexpectedly. It was a huge 20-foot diameter metal pipe, multiplate they're called, and it collapsed early in the morning in November, I think it was. And so we were authorized to do an emergency type replacement, and we've been doing that, and contractor's done a good job, and we'll be able to open that up very shortly. Some of the bridges that might be of interest to the public are 168th and State, which has been referred to as the State Street Jump. It was a hazardous intersection for years. The young drivers were challenging themselves to get their cars up to speed and just jump over that high crest vertical curve, we call it, and some paid the price for that, unfortunately. But anyway, that project is related to all the development in that corridor. There's, I think, 6 or 7 SIDs that'll be participating with Douglas County on that project. We're hoping to take the bids this fall, and we'll just see how the bids come out. But it's about a $6 million project at the current estimate, so we'll see. Fort Street, State Streets, Ida Streets are all being impacted by these developments, and as a result of that, the county and the developers are widening the roads, basically allowing for turn lanes, adding traffic signals, things of that nature to try to help move the traffic through the county system as efficiently as possible. By the way, the total cost of this 23 fiscal year projects are about $72 million, of which a third of it is the county's responsibility. About a third is federal aid responsibility on our 180th Street project, and another third is the developers. So a tremendous amount of money is being spent, and we have to kind of spread this out so that we can afford our local share, of course. Also, not really shown on this map, but what we are very aggressive on is our maintenance projects, we call them. That's asphalt overlays, maintenance surfacing, it's called, seal coats, things of that nature. They're very important projects that extend the life of existing roads for many years, if not decades. One of the projects, Commissioner Borgeson, is out on Q Street. Actually, right now we're overlaying Q Street west of 252nd Street through those curves on Q, and we're adding actually paved shoulders, and we're going to grind in what they call rumble striping on the edge line. We already did it down the center line, and we're hoping that that might assist in the accidents that we've occurred out there. Very high speed, serious fatality type accidents. So that's one of the steps that we talked about, and we're actually doing that as we speak. So Karen, if you could maybe shift to our time lapse. I have a 30-second time lapse on 180th Street that'll show the replacement of a bridge and the construction taking place on a new bridge. It goes pretty fast, so you got to keep your eyes open. This it's taking place over about 5 or 6 months. You'll see some snow showing up. Last winter we had a little bit of snow, and you can see that the contractor basically continued working during the winter months to drive piling and continue trying to get the new bridge structure in places under the contract schedule, which is actually scheduled to be completed this fall. So that pavement went in with a blink of the eye, and that just happened about 2 weeks ago. So the paving on 180th Street is basically the mainline paving, we call this, that you're looking at. The medians have to be built and the sidewalks and things of that nature. But it's paved from Maple Street south to, south of Blondo over that new bridge. If you haven't been over the new bridge, you need to do it. It's a unique looking structure. It's Art Deco presentation to somewhat imitate what was going on back in the 20s when the old Lincoln Highway was constructed. So it's very unusual bridge, and it turned out very well, we think. I've had a lot of compliments on it. Just people walk up to me and say, geez, what a beautiful bridge. Good job, Douglas County. Why don't you do the ones for the city of Omaha too? But anyway, the next slide I'd like to show you is some drone pictures of a wetland mitigation bank. And this is interesting. We started on this in 2014, bought some property just west of Bennington, by their ball fields. If you're familiar with Bennington, they have some ball fields, and it's along the Papio Creek downstream from Bennington Lake, I call it. And about 40 acres we purchased, and we have developed around 25 acres of wetland mitigation credit that is critical for our smaller projects that we do all the time. For roads, we run into wetlands in our road ditches. And also the streams you can see running through there, the channels, it's about 2,100 feet of that, and that will credit us and allow us to mitigate waters of the U.S., it's called, which are all over the place, really. And it's a real obstacle and almost impossible to mitigate those types of things on site where the construction is taking place, because there's developers adjacent to our roads, of course. So this project was just completed. It has to mature over years, and but we can draw credits off of it. But it's a unique for Douglas County to have something of this magnitude, and we'll use it for our road construction projects. But we're getting calls already from anybody or everybody who runs into this. They want to buy them. You can sell the credits, but we're holding tight on that right now and just kind of see how this goes. But people are willing to pay a pretty penny for these credits, they're called. So, but that's just of interest to you. And matter of fact, the Bennington mayor, they were quite excited about this because their long-range master plan shows a community center possibly built in this vicinity somewhere, and a trail to get over to the west shores, or Bennington Lake rather. And so they're kind of excited about it because this will stay this way in perpetuity. And They'll have access to the wildlife. There's actually a bald eagle's nest in trees along the Papio Creek we had to protect and be aware of while they were constructing this. There was requirements that the contractor had to take. So it's quite unique. So we're quite proud of this as the county. You might click through. There's a couple other pictures that can get different views. Good. So you can see this channel, and this one particularly is close to civilization. This last picture is the 36th and Ponca Road Bridge that I was talking about earlier. So you can see the bridge is in. Seating, I think, is maybe done now or will be shortly. And we'll be able to open that up hopefully in the next week or two. With that, I guess I'll end my presentation. I think we're keeping up with the developers as best we can, and the complaints and the dust and all that kind of stuff we deal with too, of course, but on gravel roads. But anyway, that'll complete my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for this, Dan. Excellent report. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you and County Engineer Tom Doyle on your consistent, excellent public service providing for the transportation needs of the people of Douglas County. You do a great job. And I particularly want to note Tom Doyle's long years of service to Douglas County. I think he may be the longest serving elected official, or he's right up there anyhow. And he's consistently run a great engineer's office at great benefit to the people of Douglas County. And we will have more to say about that later, but I just wanted to say kudos to Tom for many, many years of dedicated service, and to you and the folks in the office too. Mm-hmm. So I got kind of one question on one of the bigger projects, and I went through the report that I think it was Mary Ellsworth from your office forwarded to us, and you and I had a chance to talk briefly about it, but it looks like one of the bigger projects, and I'm referring to the map, that you showed us something on was this 180th Street project. Was that the time delay thing, the bridge thing that you showed us?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And on the map, it certainly covers the largest area. That's a 2023 completion date project?
It'll be completed this fall, 22.
Oh, great. It looks pretty extensive, and I was trying to figure out the exact extent along 180th Street. Could you tell me what that is?
Yeah, it started about a half a mile south of the old Lincoln Highway, or north of West Dodge Road.
Right.
And I think that's HWS Cleveland Boulevard is the intersecting street. And it will go north of Maple Street up to the Millard North High School, about a quarter of a mile, roughly. And it's a federal aid project like we talked about. Big project. I think it was $33 million project just for the construction. It also includes some of Blondo, $33 million. Mm-hmm. And it also includes a pretty good chunk of Blondo Street had to be relocated. There were 4 bridges impacted, so it was a big project.
So on the map itself, kind of down in the lower left-hand corner, it has a little legend, and 3 of the things that they describe in there are concrete panel repair, maintenance surfacing, and asphalt overlay. Yeah. Could you just briefly tell us the difference in those 3 categories?
Well, the concrete panel repair is self-explanatory. We have concrete roads all over the place, and they deteriorate over time, crack primarily, and spalling and salt damage. We just cut out those panels and repair them, replace them. We do, maybe $500,000 to $1 million a year just on that. The asphalt overlays, we do around 10 or 15 miles a year. And that's generally you mill the old road off because it's wore out, it's rutted. They dry out with the ultraviolet light type thing. And we overlay it with 2 to 3 inches of asphalt. The maintenance surfacing and the seal coating are basically spraying the road with an oily product that rejuvenates the surface. And we put a topping on it with gravel or something of that nature so you can drive on it immediately. So, but it extends the life for a number of years.
And of these three, what's happening on 180th Street? Are a combination of these three happening, or what?
No, that's a total reconstruction. It's a capital improvement, I guess we call it. We tore out the whole road entirely, actually relocated it a little bit to the east because of the waters of the U.S. Creek, Thompson Creek, I think it is, that runs through there, and so it's relocated. But it's a total reconstruction.
Total concrete reconstruction.
Yes.
Thank you for this. Very informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo Commissioner Kavanaugh's sentiment, Dan, all the work you guys have done and the effort you put in, especially in particular in, just so happens it would mostly be Commissioner Borgen and Commissioner Borgeson and my districts, the explosive growth and the work you guys are putting in is amazing. Dan, is there, and I can have this conversation with Joe too, and we can talk about it further, and I know we have on occasion, but can you break down most of the services that the engineer, and let's extend it out almost to environmental services, most of it's mandated. I mean, we have to do it. The county has to do it according to state law. So the budget's just over 25 million. It's about 4.7% of our budget. If you partner that with environmental services, which was another 13. By the way, I'm not saying you don't spend that well. Let's not go down that road. That's over 7% of our budget. It doesn't seem that daunting, but it's a pretty good chunk. And with all the work you're doing, that stuff adds up. And we're also talking about more expensive, you alluded to this, more expensive materials and labor, right? So I guess my question is, for a lot of that, some of that is funded with property tax, some of it's funded with grants, some of it's funded through the state and the feds. Can you tell me just a ballpark, what percentage, and what qualifies for a state or federal reimbursement? So in other words, does it happen to be on Dodge Street, which is actually a state highway, and if you're doing work out there, the state goes, well, we have to reimburse? I mean, or is that too pedestrian? So in other words, I noticed on your, finally, I noticed on your sheet, we only had one blue item there for federal funding. Mm-hmm. When does that kick in? When do we, because the feds are spending money like drunken sailors. Mm-hmm. I didn't, never mind. What I'm saying is that seemed odd to me. Can you tell me what those reimbursement mechanisms look like? When do they kick in?
Well, they're run through MAPA, is how the federal funds are distributed throughout this metropolitan area. It includes all the different jurisdictions in the MPO, they call it metropolitan area of sorts. And we use our federal money on the projects that cost in the multi-millions of dollars. They actually recommend that you shouldn't even apply for a federal aid project unless it's over $1 million because of all the red tape you have to jump through. It's okay. Years and years and years of regulations require you to do that.
So there is no federal statutory eligibility requirement where suddenly the trigger mechanism comes to you guys, Dan, and you go, all right, this qualifies, so send us that money. I mean,
well, we just went through a project selection process with MAPA recently. It was just finalized, I think, last week at the MAPA board, voted on the recommendation of the technical committee that I sit on. And what happens is these projects are submitted by all the jurisdictions to the project selection committee of MAPPA, which is represented by all the jurisdictions basically. And we go through the project and rate them. You know, which one is the most important, which one will do the most good as far as continuous traffic flows throughout the community, and it's voted on, and that's how they're chosen.
Okay.
Through that process.
Final question, and again, I always say this, but we can take it offline. Dan, I can give you a call. Can you identify and we don't have much time, but when we're funding stuff that's fee-based, where are those fees being generated and how are they transferred? So is there a certain amount of sales tax that is earmarked from a state statutory standpoint that comes to you guys no matter what? I mean,
no, we do not take advantage of that. It's the highway user fee, it's the gasoline tax,
okay.
It's the car purchases, you know, that type of thing is where we get 99% of our money.
I'm sure I could have looked that up. It was just easier for me to ask. Thanks.
Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you, Dan. The picture you showed on 180th was a construction picture of that bridge.
Yes.
You didn't have one of the new pictures of it with you.
No, it's not built yet.
Oh, I thought it was.
No. That's the substructure. They're pounding in the piling and that type of thing is what you saw.
And I agree, Tom and yourself and the rest of you all do a good job. Probably if Bill Green was still around, you'd have that bridge built by now. But
absolutely.
He was a great asset to all of us.
We miss him.
Yeah, I agree. What a good friend. Take care.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle?
Yeah, thanks for all this information. And I just want to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Friend was talking about. When you look at all the funding for this, are there ways to really maximize funding from non-county governmental entities? You mentioned MAPPA kind of dictates gives you an idea about what's needed, but how do we really, with all the money that the federal government is giving or that the state has, is there a way to really maximize this?
Well, there are grants that they're going to be making available through one of these programs coming out of Washington. And we have met with the federal highway representatives and the MAPPA staff recently to talk about it, and they are hoping that Nebraska can take advantage of this, you know, not just Douglas County, but Nebraska in general. So, you know, writing a grant is a big deal. And there's a way to write grants, apparently. The right words are important. So we're just kind of listening to them, and we're going to meet again, obviously, to talk about it and present certain projects to the group that's analyzing this and decide which ones have a chance to maybe get some of that money. So yeah, we're pursuing that. Like I mentioned earlier, about a third of the cost of this particular fiscal year is coming from developers. You know, they're out of their pocket. So, you know, and that's where our money comes from, basically, is, you know, our local funds, gasoline tax, which is a concern, by the way. We're going to these electric cars, they claim. Well, guess what? They don't burn gas. So that is going to directly affect cash flow to road construction. And that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Are those percentages, when you mentioned the SIDs too, you said basically a third, and a third are from, like, for example, federal versus county versus the, like, SID or a developer. Is there a way to manipulate or change those percentages? Like, how did we come about those percentages?
Yeah, it's negotiated. You know, some of these projects, we do not pay a penny. You know, we tell the developer that this is all at your dime. This is not a priority to Douglas County. It's your development that's causing this traffic to be generated. You pay for the whole thing, and it's done. You know, that does happen. So it's not a written down policy that we were gonna spend a third of our money on every project. It's negotiated.
Okay, that's good to hear. I know that we're all concerned about the budgetary issues at this point. So that's, I think, at the forefront of our minds. So if anything we can do to decrease costs to the taxpayers, I think that's our goal here. So I think just any initiative to get funding from either the federal government or to even have developers pay more than what they've been paying in the past, it might be something to consider.
A good example is what I just mentioned. Google data centers being built on State Street, Highway 133 as we speak, and they want the road improved to handle their traffic immediately. And we said, well, we have no money for it unless you want to wait 5 years, and they couldn't, so they're paying for the whole thing. You know, just like that. So that's how these things happen.
Yeah, that actually goes back to the first question I wrote down here is what if we don't have the money? And so that answers
and
that.
that could come up here pretty quick. You know, they're talking about a federal tax freeze or whatever. You know, that'll affect everybody directly. So I'm not sure what they're talking about, but we'll find out.
Very good, thank you.
All right, no other questions or comments? Louise?
2709 Dewey
Those
Avenue.
on Zoom, please mute. I know, it's like, really?
I just wanted to make 3 comments.
Yeah, no.
I can't find the report on the agenda. It's not attached. It's not in the attachment. It's got the resolution.
Madam Chair, if I may, County Clerk Danish, we're going to get it off the, we're going to post it to the website today.
Okay.
Or if you looked up the agenda later today, there'll be a new link and it'll have that on there. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to just throw it out there and support grant writing for these projects. You can start, what's good about grant writing is you can start with a small budget and it can balloon into a bigger budget. So I think that would be if they don't have a grant writer in that department, then they need one, I think. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak during this presentation? All right, seeing none. Thanks again, Dan. And just to remind, we'll be voting on this approval on our June 28th meeting.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, for clarification, and we did this last year, you want us to leave the public hearing open?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
all right. Thank you.
all right, with that, we will move to committees, the first being the finance, the budget report as presented, and then the monthly fee reports as presented. We have 2 action items. One is an ARPA funding approval of a resolution authorizing the award of, on the agenda, it says 25,000, but it should be 50,000. The North Omaha Cultural Center to provide partial funding for architectural design fees for multiple purpose facility. Again, $50,000. This is being invested through the allocation of Commissioner Morgan and Commissioner Garcia. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Give us one moment, please. Okay, thank you.
Next is an ARPA.
Sorry, we're waiting on,
Oh, me.
sorry, Commissioner Borges, so we
There
might
you
have started after you put the
Okay.
vote. Motion passes 7-0.
Next is an ARPA funding resolution authorizing the use of $130,000 in ARPA funds for video surveillance systems for election commissioners' drop boxes. This is being invested through the allocations of Commissioner Morgan and Commissioner Friends. ARPA dollars, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Friends, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Any questions or comments?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm opposed to both of these, number 3 and number 4. Number 1, because I think rushing for the money that's available from the tax coffers back in DC here at Treasury is not necessarily constitutional under the existing Constitution. That's another reason why we need a convention of states, to rein in this unreasonable spending by the federal government. But now we have the Douglas County Board and various other people, not just you guys, running for the money. Pretty soon the coffer's gonna be dry, and you won't be able to have your programs because most of your programs are funded by federal dollars. Don't you get it? You're breaking the bank. Now, whose money is this that you're granting? And why do we need ARPA funds for these two things? These two things are things that you should be voting on separately, with taxpayers being on the hook for it, not running to the federal government. What happens when these funds dry up and you have to have more money? You'll have to go crawling to the taxpayer. So why don't you do it to start with? Are those necessary? Do we not have election security already? Isn't there somebody that can in a community that can volunteer to do an architectural design? Is Omaha that stupid that we have to go hire somebody and give them $25,000 to start? I'm sorry, where is the community partners? Some of those community partners come up here and ask for money, don't they? Kind of their way of funding business, funding their own pockets too. I can't. But I suppose I could apply to you for a contest maybe to provide architectural design free of charge. But just the notoriety and word of mouth advertising from the project. Where is your imagination? Why do you have to spend money for everything? It's time to stop it. And why do we not? Do we or do we not have election security? Big topic right now. Again today, I guess they're blabbing their mouths about it in DC, trying to blame me and people like me instead of themselves. There are some pretty good facts of people that are very knowledgeable about the internet and the cell phone networks. It already exists. It's capable, it's out there, and the facts to show that people were messing with this system that you're talking about spending money on to prove that there was a stolen election. And the way this is worded implies we had no security on our boxes. Maybe so. Thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. On this item 4, I saw the election commissioner and deputy election commissioner here earlier, and I see Mr. Carruthers here. I was just wondering if you could give us a quick overview for the viewing public of what these security measures involve. I commend you for running fair, free, and accurate elections, and anything that we can do to help enhance that, I think is money well spent. So if you could just tell us specifically what these expenditures are for in terms of the $130,000 in ARPA funds for video surveillance systems of the election commissioners' drop boxes, I'd appreciate that. This is probably part of a wider initiative. I'm sure other people in our country are doing what they can to make our free and fair elections even more secure than they already are. So just a quick overview for folks.
Sure. Brian Cruz, Douglas County Election Commissioner, 12220 West Center Road.
Chris Carruthers, 3415 South 132nd, 116th Street. Where do I work? Where do I live? Chief Deputy Election Commissioner.
So good morning. We'll be fairly brief. There was a article in the World Herald this morning that I thought explained it fairly well. You know, we have cameras, our drop boxes are in view of cameras currently, but the county or the election commission doesn't own them. They're not the proprietors. So we'd have to work with third parties in order to get that footage in the event something were to ever happen. And, you know, the quality of it, the length of time, things of that nature would be dependent upon third party individuals to help us. So these cameras would be owned by the county. The election commission would maintain them and control them. We'd be able to look at them instantly if we needed to, get the footage quicker. You know, I want to stress we haven't had any problems. We hope there never are any problems. But in the event there's a natural disaster or an accident, or if somebody is reporting an issue, you know, it would just make the process a lot cleaner and a lot quicker to determine what's going on, you know, and we just feel like it's always better to be proactive than reactive. The amount that we're requesting is for 5 years. So it's a one-time fee for 5 years, so there wouldn't be any additional expenses for 5 years. So essentially it's the 130,000 divided up over 5 years, but we're asking for it from the ARPA funds today. So I hope that.
As somebody who's actually utilized these things, I wonder how many do we have around the county?
We have 13 around the county, and if you look at a map, we've tried to place them equally around the county. You'll see there's some to the south, some in the middle, some on the north, and they're pretty much in line going east to west.
And I've looked at this a little bit, and it seems like the voters are using these more and more each election cycle. Is that right?
That's right. So we're up to, we probably have averaged in the presidential, the city election, this election now, you know, 75% of our voters return their ballot via one of our drop boxes. You know, it is the most direct way for a voter to return their ballot to us is via our drop box. The post office is obviously a valuable partner, but again, this is the most direct way for a voter to return theirs, and there's no cost to them to do that, no postage cost for them to do that.
40 seconds.
I just wanted to congratulate you again on your excellent service to the voters of our community in providing free, fair, and accurate elections to us. Thank you very much. What you do is, I've said this before, the air supply of our democracy, and you do a great job of keeping us a free, fair, open, and democratic country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other questions or comments?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I want to put forth another critique, and it is related to the ARPA funding expenditures. I can't find somewhere where these expenditures are summarized where I can sit down and take a look at how the county is spending ARPA funds. You guys have been dealing with these funds for a couple of years, and there's no summary, there's no report. You don't have Joe come up here on a weekly basis to give a report on ARPA expenditures, which, you know, they're very important. They're very important. Maybe just as important as the health part of the pandemic is the money part. You bring the health director here, give you a report on a weekly basis, or when things are significant things are happening, but you don't have a weekly report on the ARPA funding. Maybe at this point you've went through the process and understand how you're going to spend the money. I would like a report on this where the expenditures are summarized, and I understand you gave bulk amounts to organizations, like you gave millions to OCF and stuff like that. But when this is all done, I think we need a report at least to satisfy the people's curiosity. Not everybody's getting ARPA funding. There's a lot of people who are getting it through the rental assistance and the utility assistance. But there's creative ways that you guys have spent this money, and I'm not opposed to that, but I'd like to see it. I could ask Joe, but he gets a bit crusty if I ask for a pie chart, for example. You know, and I want to be serious about this. You know, I want to know how the millions of dollars from the Congress is being allocated here. Thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Oh, I'm
Or
sorry.
that was left over, okay.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Dan Esch, County Clerk. We do, on the clerk's website, we do have like a running list of approvals, like starting with CARES and going to ARPA, but Mr. Jimenez has a good point, and even my colleague in my office, Kim Bolo, had mentioned how we could probably make it a bit easier to find and provide a better summary, so we'll work on that, but we do post them to the website, but improvements certainly could be made to that, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I think we had a motion.
Yes.
And a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
The next committees, there's nothing else on the committees except for the Human Resources. There's a weekly personnel report from Civil Service as presented. And then we do have need for an executive session for labor negotiations. And there is a Human Resources Committee meeting at 1 o'clock this afternoon in room 903. Is there a motion to go into executive session for labor negotiations?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Commissioner Rogers. Motion passes 7-0.